Week 9 of the 2025 fantasy football season kicks off tonight, and in today's video, I'm going to help you guys set your lineup at the tight end position. We're going to be going in depth from Thursday Night Football all the way up until Monday Night Football through each game, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the tight ends in each matchup, as well as where I believe they'll finish by the end of the week. Before we get into things, though, I would like to ask if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens at the Miami Dolphins. Now, Mark Andrews is startable in the tight end 14 to 18 range. He is not a guy that I think I could properly bang the drum for, as this season has been nothing short of a disaster. His best game was back in week number 3 up against the Lions as the tight end number 2, but after that, everything has really gone downhill. Isaiah Likely and him are going to split reps, and Charlie Kolar also gets work, so the return of Lamar Jackson is good enough for me to believe that maybe the Ravens could go nuclear in this game, put up belt-to-ass numbers, and Mark Andrews could find the end zone, and that belief is good enough for me to roll him out there. But in terms of safety, there is virtually none, with Mark Andrews in the 11th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis up against the Dolphins. Without Darren Waller, starting at Dolphins tight end would be more insane than going to Haddonfield, Illinois on Halloween. Tanner Conner should be the tight end one on paper, so if there was one of them that was going to luck box their way into the end zone, it would be him. But with him more than likely playing less than 50% of the snaps, even if Tua locks in like he did up against the Falcons with pink eye, I don't think Conner will have a good enough game to actually be quantified as a start-worthy asset. 0 games this year with more than 5 fantasy points. I don't project that to change here. Now we move to the beginning of the Sunday slate, the Chicago Bears at the Cincinnati Bengals. Noah Fant kind of flirts with being in the close start and sit range. What I mean by that is if you were to flip 1 or 2 players, then Noah Fant would be considered a sit. The matchup here is great, as the Bears allow the 10th most points on a per-game basis to tight ends, and even with Flacco cooking, though, the problem is there is just one ball. If he saw more than 3 to 4 targets, I would genuinely be shocked. So while the matchup is ripe, I definitely would temper my expectations. I got him as a low-end tight end number 2 start. If Cole Kmet is back, who was limited in practice yesterday, Colston Loveland has virtually 0 fantasy value. Last week, he was the team's tight end number 1. No Cole Kmet, and even still, he didn't do anything. 3 of 5 for 38 yards. So if Kmet cannot play, I will be fine starting Loveland in the tight end 2 range, as the Bengals are the best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. But if Cole Kmet is back, he is best left on your bench, or honestly on waivers. Now we move to the cold like Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. Now Sam Laporta cooled down after back-to-back games of the tight end 4 from weeks 5 through 6. Prior to the bye in week 7, he had just 3 receptions on 3 targets for 15 yards as the tight end number 32 up against the Buccaneers. Laporta has been far from a safe option all year long, with 3 games inside the top 5 and all other 4 games outside the top 20. In the 15th best matchup for tight ends on a per game basis, this could be one of those big games for Sam Laporta. So while he is as safe as using a condom with a bunch of holes in it, it could be an amazing time. I got him as a low-end tight end 1 this week. With J.J. McCarthy back as the quarterback 1, we will look back to how Hawkinson performed with McCarthy under center. He was tight end 31 in week number 1 at Chicago, tight end 42 up against the Atlanta Falcons in week number 2. Those 2 games did not include Jordan Addison either. So with Jordan Addison in the fold, and based on how McCarthy looked in his first 2 starts, I have no idea how you could have an ounce of confidence in actually starting Hawkinson, especially since even with Wentz, Hawk had just 2 games of 5 with over 10 PPR points. Even in the 18th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis, I would stay away from him like he's got the cheese touch. Now we move to the Carolina Panthers at the Green Bay Packers. Tucker Kraft mac and cheese has found real consistency since coming out the bye week. 3 straight games as a top 10 tight end, and last week, the guy flew straight to the moon like that Frank Sinatra song. Tight end 1 up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. 7 receptions on 9 targets for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns, raining on the parade of the Aaron Rodgers revenge game. 3 straight games with at least 1 touchdown, facing off up against a Panthers defense that allows the 9th most points on a per-game basis to tight ends. Tucker Kraft must be in your lineup as a top 3 option. Him and Jordan Love's connection is a beautiful sight to behold. Jatavion Colonel Sanders has been back for 2 games now from the injury that made him miss games 4 through 6. Since returning, he has scored 0 and 4.9 PPR points. The Panthers use 3 tight ends weekly, so while I do think that Sanders is a fine enough player with Tommy make that ass tremble playing so many snaps though, and Mitchell Evans seeing the field, there is no reason to rock with any of these Panthers tight ends. Now we got the LA Superchargers at the Tennessee Titans. Aaron Gadsden II is balling out of control. 3 straight games as a top 13 tight end and back-to-back weeks as a top 3 tight end. Last week up against the Vikings on Thursday Night Football, 5 of 5 for 77 yards and a touchdown as the tight end 3. Back-to-back games with a touchdown as well. I get that the Chargers have a lot of skill position players that are very talented, so Gadsden could shit the bed at any point, but even with that said, it would appear that Justin Herbert, the pervert, views him as a nice safety blanket, a nice safety net, which honestly should help him stay consistent. So while the matchup here is far from the best for tight ends, it's the 25th best matchup for tight ends on a per game basis, Gadsden has played too well. I got him ranked as a top 7 option at the tight end position. Now, Chig Okonkwo was limited in practice on yesterday with a foot issue. His availability is definitely in question as we sit here on Thursday, so it is important to follow up on this situation. Keep looking at the practice reports if you have to play Chig. In my opinion, though, I've said this every single week about him. I think he is a good enough player that you would want him in your lineup. The problem is this offense is far too dysfunctional for him to even be on your team. Just 2 of 8 games with over 10 fantasy points, and with the floor being 0 points, I would not play him even if he does start. If he misses, then Gunnar Helm would be the tight end number 1. Gunnar Helm sounds like the boss in a fucking Borderlands video game, who was able to score a touchdown last week, so I was very proud of him for that, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm not starting any of these tight ends. Now we move to the Atlanta Falcons at the New England Patriots. Despite a disaster class showing up against the Dolphins by the Atlanta Falcons, Kyle Pitts still showed up to work on Sunday like he doesn't work at Chick-fil-A. 9 receptions on 9 targets for 59 yards as the tight end 6 from Cole's Cash Kirk Cousins with 9+ targets in back-to-back games. In the 5th best matchup for tight ends on a per game basis, Kyle Pitts is a must-start top 10 option at the tight end position. Hunter Henry's production has been all over the place this season, and there's virtually no rhyme or reason to it. We have seen him dominate up against the Steelers back in week 3 as the tight end 1, scoring 29 PPR points, and we have seen him score less than 2 fantasy points as well this season. Last week up against the Cleveland Browns, he had 1 reception on 1 target for 7 yards and a touchdown. The Patriots offense is lethal, so I could see Hunter Henry elbow dropping the Falcons defense, but in the 32nd best matchup for tight ends on a per game basis, he is a desperation play at best. Now we move to the San Francisco 49ers at the New York Football Giants. After George Kittle had fantasy owners ready to break their televisions in week 7 up against the Falcons in prime time, his return game from injury, Kittle scratched our backs in week number 8, so it just so happens that my back is also located on my cock. Shout out to Seth from Superbad. In that spot in Houston against the Texans, he was 4 of 5 for 43 yards and a touchdown in a game where the offense was far from ideal. Up against the Giants, who allow the 17th most points to tight ends on a per game basis, George Kittle Me Timbers is a must-start top 6 option. He didn't draft him as high as you did to fucking sit the guy. Theo Johnson is as boom or bust as it gets. 3 receptions on 4 targets last week for 20 yards. The week prior, he was the tight end number 9 up against the Broncos with 3 receptions on 7 targets for 66 yards and a score. This guy has the upside to score multiple touchdowns in a matchup like this, and for that reason, you can play him. The floor, very low though, but in the 23rd best matchup for tight ends, he is a break glass in case of emergency, tight end 2 type of start. Now we got the Indianapolis Colts at the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you guys have enjoyed this video thus far, make sure you do hit that subscribe button down below, and whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you leave a like on today's video. Now, Tyler Warren has been awesome this season. Sadly, I didn't draft him on any of my teams, but I did talk him up in the summer, so at least my opinion was correct, even though I wish I could go back in time and just draft him in every league instead of dealing with guys like fucking Mason Taylor as my starting tight end on a week in, week out basis. 5 straight top 12 finishes for Tyler Warren, and with the Colts offense running at tip-top shape, Tyler Warren must be in your lineup. A touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games. So against the Steelers, who allow the second most points to tight ends on a per-game basis, this should be his best game yet. He is my tight end 1 on the week. The matchup here has me bricked up for what he is about to do. Simply put, the Pittsburgh Steelers utilize Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, and Darnell Washington on a weekly basis. When you use 3 tight ends in this fashion, none of them can actually be trusted enough to be started. They cannibalize off of one and other, and outside of that game up against the Bengals, where Rodgers was throwing touchdowns to tight ends like Oprah, you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown, you all get a touchdown. These guys have not been good at all. You just got to leave them on your waivers. I understand that, sure, Jonnu Smith could score this week, Freiermuth could score this week, any of these tight ends could, up against the Indianapolis Colts. It's the 4th best matchup for tight ends. I just have zero confidence level in any of these guys. Now we move to the Denver Broncos at the Houston Texans, the final game before the 4 o'clock slate, before we break down this game in depth and the rest of the games at the tight end position. I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends, our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, you will get a free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as you play $5 on the pick'em, you receive an additional $100 in bonus funds or in bonus entries. If you don't know how the pick'em works, it's incredibly simple. You make at least 2 picks on the higher or the lower for the players. If those picks hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher. Make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description. Evan Ingram is, in my opinion, a last-ditch effort at the tight end position. Break glass in case of emergency type of guy. Even with the Broncos offense being a wagon and having the ability to put up 40+ points in any given game, Evan Ingram just feels like the kind of guy that's going to get you 9 to 12 points every single week, and you kind of just acknowledge that prior to the game, and if you're okay with that, it's fine. 4 receptions on 4 targets last week for 36 yards up against the Cowboys. The Texans are a brutal matchup, the 28th best matchup 4 tight ends on a per game basis. I don't expect this game to turn into a rock'em sock'em robots matchup that's super high scoring. So again, it's a last ditch effort type of play. Dalton Schultz was not practicing on Wednesday. He did finish last week's game after he did get hurt up against the 49ers. So we'll see how he progresses and practices throughout the week. 2 receptions on 3 targets last week for 24 yards. Prior to last week, he had back-to-back solid showings with 6+ targets in 4 straight games. I don't think, based on what we saw last week, you want to be investing your life savings into Dalton Schultz's stock, but as a desperation play, it is fine. Now we move to the 4 p.m. slate. The Jacksonville Jaguars at the Las Vegas Raiders. 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Brock Bowers is expected to play this week with his knee injury that he suffered in week number 1. He played through it from weeks 2 through 4 and struggled to score more than 10 fantasy points. He has now missed 3 straight games, as well as the bye week, so it would seem to me that this is going to be the most healthy version of him that we've seen outside of week 1, and in week 1, he was 5 of 8 for 103 yards on just 51% of the snaps as the tight end number 2. I understand that the Raiders offense is a disgrace, and I make fun of them on a weekly basis, as Geno Smith plays like he can't read a fucking Dr. Seuss book, right? Green, eggs, and ham doesn't compute for Mr. Geno Smith, but even with the game, this man being on the struggle bus with the offense, struggling mightily, a healthy Brock Bowers is a force to be reckoned with. I got him as a must-start top 6 option on the week, especially considering this is the 13th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. With Brenton Strange on IR, none of these Jaguars tight ends should be holding a candle enough to even be on your roster. Hunter Long is on paper the tight end 1 on the team and should play around 60+% of the snaps, but with him failing to score 4 PPR points now in 3 straight games, and his ceiling feeling like it's 3 targets in the 26th best matchup for tight ends on a per game basis, you aren't going to play him or roster him. Now we got the Saints at the LA Rams. Juwan Johnson has performed well in back-to-back weeks with 10+ points in each game. Last week up against the Bucs, he was 5 of 8 for 53 yards after being nothing short of a disaster from weeks 4 through 6. Facing a Rams defense that allows the 22nd most amount of points on a per game basis to tight ends, I think if you have to start Juwan Johnson, I'm not going to heckle you on here, but with the team switching to Tyler Shuck, I'm not sure if the targets will stay the same. Maybe they will increase, maybe they will dip. So for that reason, I am out like one of those guys on the Shark Tank. Tyler Higbee, for him, the Rams utilize a foursome at the tight end position. In a system like that, even on a team that is as good as the Rams, and even in a good matchup up against the Saints, I just don't think I can make any argument to justify playing any of them, and they should all be on waivers, even though the Rams are a wagon. Now we got the Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills, the game of the week, where we're going to hear Tony Romo go from sucking Josh Allen's cock to Mahomes' cock back and forth. It's going to be a little bit creepy to listen to. I don't know, Jim. With the Chiefs unloading the clip into the Commanders last week, Travis Kelce had himself a day as the tight end number 2. 6 receptions on 8 targets for 99 yards and a touchdown. Kelce even gift wrapped. He was feeling a little bit festive. He handed the Commanders an interception by letting the ball fly off of his hands into the air like he was playing volleyball, but then he was able to bounce back. In what could be the highest scoring game of the week, Travis Kelce is going to be in your lineup. The Bills are the second worst matchup for tight ends on a per game basis, so I definitely think the bust potential is there, and even with Rice sucking in targets, with the skill that Riley Reid sucks on other things, Kelce is a low-end tight end 1. Start on his upside alone. Last week, at a solid matchup up against the Panthers in Carolina, Dalton Kincaid was not so hot. 1 of 3 for 23 yards, playing 22% of the snaps. He was coming off an oblique injury, so that may have led to them kind of slow rolling him back and using just the tip approach instead of shoving him all the way in last week. This week, in a matchup that could be a barn burner and should be, Allen will be throwing the ball a ton, so assuming the team throws Kincaid out there for more snaps, he should be able to finish as a low-end tight end 1 based on his production this season. Now we move to, cause you waited all day for Sunday night, the Seattle Seahawks at the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders on Sunday Night Football, with Jaden Daniels seemingly back, and with Terry McLaurin out after re-injuring his quad. The door's wide open for a big finish here out of Zach Ertz. Ertz has been significantly better with Jaden Daniels in versus without him. In weeks 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7, he was the tight end 13, 2, 83, 5, and 14 with Jaden Daniels. Last week with Marcus Mariota, 4 of 6 for 16 yards up against the Chiefs in Kansas City. In the 8th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis, I got Zach Ertz penciled in as a low-end tight end number 1. In a great matchup this week for A.J. Barner against the Commanders, the 7th best matchup for tight ends. It's great, right? I'm excited about it, but the problem is his targets are not reliable enough for me to actually tout him as a start. 3 targets in back-to-back games with 7 targets back in week number 5. The guy is a great target for mono man Sam Darnold in the red zone, so he certainly could pay off in a matchup like this. So if you want to start him, it's okay. But at the end of the day, if he gets just 3 targets again, I find it very difficult to actually play him. Now we move to Monday Night Football, the Arizona Cardinals at the Dallas Cowboys. Trey McBride has been hotter than the sun over the last 2 games without Kyler Murray. Back-to-back finishes as a top 2 tight end and 3 total touchdowns over that stretch. With Kyler, though, Trey McBride was perfectly fine. He was a guy you could rely on week in and week out, but it just wasn't as good as with Jacoby Brissett. This is the 19th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. Trey McBride is a must-start top 3 tight end. I got him as my tight end numero 2. Jake Ferguson, Fergalicious, put up a donut like his name was Homer Simpson last week up against the Broncos in Mile High. 1 target for 0 receptions, resulting in a grand total of 0 fantasy points. The team got rocked like Apollo Creed when he fought Ivan Drago, and just like Apollo, he could not get up. Needed a life alert. Jake Ferguson was a major casualty of that. Prior to last week, he was a top 11 tight end in 6 straight games, with 5 of 6 of those games as a top 6 tight end, facing the Arizona Cardinals, who allow the 6th most points to tight ends on a per-game basis. I feel real nicey about a bounce back here, and I got him as a must-start top 5 option. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying today's video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It'd help me out a ton. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen them already. Running back rankings coming out later. We'll also be live around 7 to 7:15-ish p.m. Eastern Standard Time, answering all of your questions for week number 9. I love you long time. Hope you have a great one. As always, good boy.